Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is February 11th, 2026.
Yeah.
And if you are the type of person who checks their calendar with, I don't know, a sense of impending doom or maybe just intense excitement, you know exactly where we are in the timeline. We are standing on the precipice. We are just over 2 weeks out, February 27th, the theatrical release of Scream 7. Now, look. Usually, when a big blockbuster is about to drop, the conversation is pretty standard. You talk about the trailers, you talk about the popcorn buckets, you predict the box office opening weekend, but that is not what we are doing today.
No, absolutely not. Because Scream 7 isn't just a movie release. It is, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, the end result of one of the most chaotic, controversial, and frankly confusing production cycles in modern Hollywood history.
Oh, absolutely. A couple of years ago, this movie looked dead. And not, horror movie dead where they come back for one last scare, but actually dead. Buried. Done.
It was a ship without a captain, without a crew, and seemingly without any course at all. And yet, here we are. It has undergone a complete creative retooling, a massive pivot, and somehow morphed from this PR nightmare into what looks like a massive nostalgia reunion.
So here is our mission for this deep dive. We aren't just previewing a film, we are conducting a forensic analysis of how this franchise survived itself. And to do that, we've pulled a massive stack of sources. We have the raw industry reporting on the production exodus, and we're going to be very, very precise with that.
Yes, we have to be.
We have the casting announcements that are raising some, let's say, serious logic questions. We have interviews with the returning architect himself, Kevin Williamson.
And because we like to go a layer deeper than everyone else, we have brought in a bit of an academic heavyweight. We have a master's thesis titled The Infinite Nature of Scream.
Which I absolutely love. It brings a level of intellectual rigor to, let's be honest, a slasher movie that I think is surprisingly necessary for this one.
It really is. It analyzes the postmodern framework of the 1996 original, and we are going to use that framework to decode what Scream 7 is trying to do, specifically when it comes to technology, AI, and, the very nature of truth itself.
So buckle up. We are going to unpack the controversy. We're going to dissect the dead characters who are somehow walking around again. We're going to see if this movie can actually pull off the ultimate magic trick, scaring an audience that thinks they've seen it all.
Let's dive in.
We have to start with the elephant in the room. Or really, it's more like a herd of elephants, isn't it? Because before we got to this polished marketing campaign we're seeing now, with Neve Campbell front and center, this production was an absolute disaster zone.
It was a very public, very messy unraveling. And to understand the movie we are getting on February 27th, you have to understand the movie we lost back in late 2023.
Right. Context is key here. Scream 7 had just come out. It did great numbers. Everyone was happy. It established the core four, Sam, Tara, Mindy, Chad. The torch had, seemingly been passed. The reboot was successful.
It was a slam dunk. And then, in November 2023, the wheels just came off. It started with the firing of Melissa Barrera, who played Sam Carpenter. And let's be clear, Sam wasn't just a character. She was the protagonist. She was the Billy Loomis connection. She was the anchor of this new trilogy.
Now, we have a rule here on the Deep Dive about impartial reporting. We are dealing with a situation that involves real-world geopolitical conflict, heavily charged emotions, and a lot of corporate crisis management. So we aren't here to take sides. We're here to look at the sources and report exactly what was said, because the specific language used by both sides is what completely altered the course of this franchise.
Exactly. You have to be precise. So let's look at the statement from Spyglass Media Group, the production company behind the film. When the news first broke that Barrera was fired, it was all very vague. But Spyglass eventually issued a statement to clarify their stance.
And I have that right here. They stated, and I'm quoting this directly, "Our stance is unequivocally clear. We have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or the incitement of hate in any form." They went on to characterize her social media posts, which were about the Israel-Palestine conflict, as including, quote, false references to genocide.
So from the studio's perspective, this was a clear violation of their policy on hate speech. That was their official line, their justification. Now, you have to look at Melissa Barrera's response and the perspective she shared with her followers.
Right, because she did not stay silent. Not at all. Her sources and her subsequent statements indicated that she felt she was using her platform to voice support for Palestine and to critique what she herself described as genocide and ethnic cleansing.
And right there, that's it. It was a massive collision of political expression and corporate risk aversion. And regardless of where anyone listening stands on the issue personally, the result for the movie was immediate and catastrophic. The main character was gone. The entire trilogy was essentially decapitated.
And in Hollywood, when it rains, it pours. Because almost immediately after the Barrera news, the other shoe dropped, Jenna Ortega was out.
Jenna Ortega, who played Tara Carpenter, the other half of the sister duo that was the heart of the new films, and arguably, at that moment, one of the biggest stars on the planet thanks to Wednesday.
Yeah, her star was meteoric. Now, the initial narrative here, the official story, was very standard Hollywood PR. What did the reports say at the time?
The initial reports, the ones from the major trades, all claimed it was scheduling conflicts. They said the shooting schedule for Wednesday Season 2 just couldn't work with Scream 7. And, I mean, on the surface...
It's plausible.
Yeah.
To be fair, TV schedules are brutal, especially for a lead on a massive show like that.
It is plausible, but it wasn't the whole truth. And we know that because we have an interview from Ortega herself much later in April of 2025.
Almost 2 years later?
Exactly. In that interview, she finally clarified the timeline. She explicitly stated that her exit had, and this is the direct quote, nothing to do with pay or scheduling. She cited the Melissa stuff. She said the project was falling apart.
Wow, that's a very candid admission. Usually actors stick to the company line even years later.
She went even further. She said that without the original team that she fell in love with, it just didn't feel like the right career move for her. So what you have is a situation where the political firing of one lead essentially triggered the sort of moral resignation of the other.
So now you're Spyglass. You've lost your two leads. Your entire story is gone. But it gets worse. You also lost the captain of the ship, Christopher Landon.
I feel for Christopher Landon in this whole story. He directed Happy Death Day, which is a brilliant horror comedy loop movie. He was the perfect guy to take over this franchise. He was hired, he was prepping, and then the storm hit.
And his exit wasn't some quiet, buried press release. It was emotional. It was very public.
It was raw. He posted a tweet, which he later deleted, but the internet never forgets, that simply said, "Everything sucks. Stop yelling."
Stop yelling. Yeah, it really just captures the noise of that moment, doesn't it? The fans were screaming. The press was screaming. Everyone was yelling.
Later, when things had calmed down, he gave a more formal description. He called the whole experience a dream job that turned into a nightmare. And our sources note that this wasn't just, professional stress. He was facing significant online harassment, even death threats from fans during all that turmoil.
It just highlights how unbelievably toxic the environment around this production had become. It wasn't creative differences. It was a genuinely hostile environment.
So put yourself in the studio executive's chair for a second. It's early 2024. You have no script because the script you had was about Sam and Tara. You have no director. You have a fan base that is divided, incredibly angry, and in some corners, actively campaigning against the movie ever being made. The brand is toxic. Most studios would have just shelved it for 5 years.
But this is Scream. It's a cash cow. It's a legacy IP. You don't just shelve it. You pivot.
You pivot hard. And when the future is burning down all around you, where do you look?
You look to the past.
Enter Neve Campbell.
The ultimate safety net. Now, we have to remember, she famously skipped Scream's 6th. We covered this in a previous deep dive, but just remind us why.
It was a pay dispute. Simple as that. She felt the offer didn't reflect the value that she, as Sidney Prescott, brought to the franchise. She stood her ground, she said no, and she walked away. It was a huge moment for pay equity in Hollywood, really.
So for Spyglass to get her back, especially after the Barrera disaster, they must have just opened the vault.
We don't have the exact numbers, but we can assume the check was significant.
Yeah.
But they didn't just bring back the star. They knew they needed to restore credibility. They needed to show the fans that the soul of Scream was still intact. So they brought back the architect, Kevin Williamson.
This is the piece that I think is the most significant for the actual quality of the film we're about to see. Kevin Williamson wrote the original Scream, he wrote Scream 2, and he wrote Scream 4. He created this universe. He created Sidney Prescott. He is the voice of this series.
But here is the kicker. He had never directed one.
That is wild to think about. He's been the godfather of this series for, 30 years now? But never the guy calling action.
And in the interviews we have in our stack, Williamson admits he was terrified. He wasn't looking to direct. He said he didn't want to do it without Wes Craven.
Wes Craven, of course, the legendary director of the first 4 films who passed away back in 2015.
Williamson called the offer a weird, surreal moment. He felt like he was stepping into his mentor's shoes, and he was really hesitant. But, and this connects all the dots, it was Neve Campbell who pushed for it.
Really? She was the one who lobbied for him?
Yes. The sources say she explicitly encouraged him to take the helm. She told him, "You're the only one who can do this." So what you have now is a production that has completely shed its reboot skin. The Sam and Tara Carpenter era is gone and has fully returned to being a legacy franchise focused on Sidney Prescott, written and directed by her original creator.
It's a complete creative U-turn. It's almost like the last two movies. I don't want to say they didn't happen because they're canon, but narratively we are sort of skipping back to the original timeline in a big way.
It's a requel of the requel.
Exactly. So, okay, let's unpack what this new version of the movie actually looks like. Because despite all that chaos, they did make a movie. And judging by the plot details we have, Sidney Prescott has moved a long, long way from Woodsboro.
She has, and this is where the forensic analysis gets fun. According to the plot details we've gathered, Sidney is now living in a place called Pine Grove, Indiana.
Indiana. That's a choice. It's very flyover state. It's very, very far from Hollywood and very far from Woodsboro, California. It's aggressively normal.
It's the anti-Woodsboro. It's flat. It's quiet. And she has built a real life there. The sources describe her not as a victim in hiding, but as a pillar of the community. She's a mother, a business owner, and a wife.
And the casting of the husband is such a huge nod to the hardcore fans. It's a deep cut.
A huge one. Her husband is a character named Mark Evans, and he's played by Joel McHale. Now, deep breath for the lore nerds out there.
Yeah.
This confirms that she did, in fact, marry Mark Kincaid, the detective from Scream 3.
Wait, hold on. Let's clarify this for the listener who hasn't memorized the IMDb page of Scream 3. In Scream 3, Mark Kincaid was played by Patrick Dempsey, Dr. McDreamy himself.
Correct.
But now he's Joel McHale, the guy from Community.
Yes. And our sources clarify why this happened. It wasn't a creative choice to recast, it was logistics again. Patrick Dempsey was reportedly in talks to return. They wanted him. But due to scheduling conflicts with his other projects, and get this, the California wildfires affecting his availability during the shoot window, he just couldn't make it work.
Wildfires. That is a very 2020s reason to lose an actor. Just incredible.
So Joel McHale is stepping in. He's playing Mark Evans. Now, presumably, Evans is a name they adopted for safety, or maybe Kincaid changed his name. But the character archetype remains the same, the protective husband who knows her entire terrifying history.
I can actually see Joel McHale doing this really well. He has that tall, imposing physicality, but he could also be incredibly dry and sarcastic.
Yeah.
That fits the vibe of a guy married to a final girl.
Yeah.
You have to have a sense of humor to survive that marriage.
You absolutely would. But let's talk about the daughter, because if the husband is the support system, the daughter is the target.
And her name, wow. This one really hit me when I read it.
It's the emotional anchor of the entire new premise. Sidney's daughter is played by Isabel May, and her name is Tatum.
Tatum. Wow.
For those who need a refresher, Tatum Riley was Sidney's best friend in the first movie, played by Rose McGowan.
The garage door scene.
One of the most iconic deaths in horror history, crushed by the garage door while trying to escape through the cat flap.
So naming her daughter Tatum, that tells you everything you need to know about Sidney's headspace for the last 30 years. She didn't just move on, she carried that grief with her every single day. She honored her friend in the most profound way possible.
It confirms a long-held fan theory that Sidney never stopped mourning Tatum, but narratively it raises the stakes to an almost unbearable level. The premise of Scream 7 is that a new Ghostface emerges, specifically targeting Sidney's daughter, Tatum.
So it's not just Sidney fighting for her own life anymore. It's not about survival.
No, it's the mama bear trope, but applied to the ultimate final girl.
Yeah.
It's Sidney Prescott fighting to save Tatum again. Just think about the psychology of that. She failed to save Tatum Riley in 1996. Now she has a second chance to save Tatum Evans in 2026.
That is just good storytelling. That is Kevin Williamson knowing exactly which emotional buttons to push.
It is. And speaking of pushing buttons, let's talk about the opening kill. Every single Scream movie lives or dies by its opening scene. Drew Barrymore making popcorn, Jada Pinkett Smith in the movie theater.
And the rumors around this opening scene are, well, they are aggressive.
The rumors are very, very detailed. The sequence supposedly features a couple played by Michelle Randolph and Jimmy Tatro. They are staying at an Airbnb for a weekend getaway.
Classic setup. You can see it already.
But it turns out this Airbnb is the former home of Stu Macher.
No way. Stu's house. The location of the finale of the first movie. The house where the party happened. Where Billy and Stu revealed their entire plan. That house.
The very same, the one with the iconic kitchen. And the rumor is that they are stalked, murdered, and then the house is torched, burned to the ground.
Whoa. Burning down Stu Macher's house in the opening scene, that is a statement. That's like blowing up the Death Star in the first 5 minutes of Star Wars.
It is symbolic destruction on a massive scale. It ties the new film immediately back to the roots. Stu's house is where it all ended in 1996, but by burning it, the movie might be signaling that it's going to dismantle the legacy. It's saying, we are burning the past to the ground.
Or perhaps that the past is literally catching fire and coming for the present. It feels definitive.
Which is pretty ironic because while the house might be burning, the people from that house might not be as gone as we all thought.
Okay, this brings us to the weirdest, most speculative, and frankly most controversial part of our source stack. The casting of the dead.
This is where the deep dive gets really speculative, and we have to be clear, this is based on the available data, but the data itself is just confusing.
We have official casting confirmation, or at least very strong industry reporting, for two actors in particular, Matthew Lillard and Scott Foley.
Yes. Matthew Lillard, who played Stu Macher in Scream 1, and Scott Foley, who played Roman Bridger, the killer in Scream 3.
Okay, let's play the skeptic here. I have watched these movies more times than I can count. I've seen the bodies. Stu Macher had a 1990s television drop directly on his head and was electrocuted. Roman Bridger was shot multiple times, including in the head, by Dewey. In the Scream universe, usually dead means dead. This isn't Friday the 13th.
Usually, but we have three main theories emerging from the sources on how this is even possible.
Okay, let's hear them. Theory number 1.
Hallucinations or trauma. This is the most grounded theory. Sidney has a well-established history of this. In Scream 3, she was constantly seeing visions of her dead mother, Maureen Prescott. She saw her in windows, on movie sets, everywhere.
Right, so the idea is, with the 30th anniversary of the original attacks approaching, and her own daughter now under threat, Sidney's PTSD is flaring up in a major way.
Exactly. Lillard and Foley aren't real. They aren't back from the dead. They are manifestations of her guilt and her deepest fears. It allows the actors to come back and shoot the scenery. I mean, Matthew Lillard is great at that crazy energy without completely breaking the established reality of the movie.
That's the safe bet. It's grounded in character psychology. But what about theory number 2? This is the one the internet is obsessed with.
The Stu is alive truthers.
There has been a conspiracy theory on Reddit for decades that Stu somehow survived the TV.
It is a massive online subculture. They analyze frames of the movie, they look for background details in the sequels, and Scream 6 actually acknowledged this. There was a line about how Stu is alive, conspiracies exist within the movie universe itself.
So it's canon that people believe it.
Yeah.
But is it plausible that it's true?
The Nerdist source in our stack argues pretty heavily against it. Their point is a good one. It would be incredibly hard to hide a notorious serial killer for 30 years, especially one as loud and unhinged as Stu. And let's not forget, Kevin Williamson has previously gone on record multiple times saying Stu is dead, period.
But this is a movie, and Kevin Williamson also said he'd never direct. Things change. If they want Matthew Lillard back, they could just say he was in a coma, he escaped, and half the audience would stand up and cheer.
They absolutely would. But there is a third theory. And this one connects directly to the modern themes we hinted at earlier. Theory number 3, technology and deepfakes.
Ah, this is the Black Mirror angle.
It is. Rumors from our sources suggest that AI and deepfake technology play a significant role in the plot.
So the killer isn't Stu or Roman. The killer is using AI to look like them, to sound like them.
Or to make Sidney think they are back. Just imagine this. You get a FaceTime call, you answer it, and on the screen, looking exactly as he did in 1996, is Stu Macher. He's talking to you. He knows where you are. He knows your daughter's name.
That is, yeah, that's actually terrifying. More so than a guy in a mask in some ways.
It aligns perfectly with modern true crime obsessions. You see fans online making digital recreations of their favorite killers. It turns the ghost in Ghostface into a literal digital ghost.
It also solves the age issue. Matthew Lillard is in his 50s now. But a deepfake can be de-aged. It can look 18 forever. It essentially weaponizes nostalgia against Sidney. Here are the monsters from your past, brought to you by high-resolution rendering.
And this isn't just a gimmick. This brings us to the academic side of things, because this transition from a guy in a mask with a knife to a digital deepfake actually fits perfectly into the thesis we have in our source stack.
Yes, let's bring in the thesis. The infinite nature of Scream. It sounds like a philosophy course I definitely would have failed in college.
It's a fascinating read. It analyzes the original 1996 film through the lens of something called postmodernism.
Okay, we throw that word around a lot.
Yeah.
Postmodern. Let's do a quick postmodernism 101 for the listeners. How does the thesis define it in the context of Scream?
So typically, horror movies before Scream operated on a very strict suspension of disbelief. The characters didn't know they were in a horror movie.
Hmm.
If you watched Friday the 13th, the campers didn't turn to each other and say, hey, this is just like what happened in Psycho.
Right. They were innocent. They were genre unaware.
Postmodernism, and specifically what the thesis calls hyper-postmodernism, completely changes that. In Scream, the characters know the tropes, they reference Halloween, they know the rules of slasher movies.
Don't have sex, don't drink or do drugs, and never, ever, ever say, I'll be right back.
Exactly. The film uses pastiche, which is just a fancy word for imitating and blending different styles. It blends horror with comedy, with teen drama. But here's the key insight from the thesis that relates directly to technology.
Okay, I'm listening.
The thesis argues that in 1996, the new weapon wasn't the knife, it was the mobile phone.
The giant brick phone. I remember those.
Right. Think about horror movies before 1996. If you were inside your house and all the doors were locked, you were generally considered safe. The danger was outside.
The castle defense. The call is coming from inside the house.
The mobile phone completely disrupted that. It allowed the killer to bridge the gap between outside and inside instantly. It removed the safety of the locked door. The killer could be anywhere in the world, yet whispering directly in your ear. It dissolved the physical barrier.
So in 1996, the phone disrupted the idea of physical safety, of a safe space.
Correct. Now, fast forward to 2026 and Scream 7. If the rumors about AI and deepfakes are true, we are seeing the next evolution of that exact same threat.
Oh, so.
Well, the thesis mentions this 1996 idea from Susan Sontag about the decay of cinema. She argued that home viewing, watching movies on a VCR, kills the mystique of movies. It makes them small and disposable.
And the original Scream opens with Casey Becker making popcorn to watch a scary movie on video at home, and then she dies a horrible death.
Yeah.
It's like a cautionary tale about home entertainment.
Exactly. But Scream 7 seems to be tackling the decay of truth.
Okay. I see where you're going with this.
In 1996, you couldn't trust that you were alone in your own house. In 2026, you can't trust your own eyes. If you see Stu Macher on a screen, is it really him? Is it a recording? Is it a live deep fake? The tech blurs the line between past and present, real and fake.
That is a fascinating parallel. It moves the fear from where's the killer to what is real.
And that is a very postmodern problem, isn't it? We are living in an era of what some call simulacra copies without originals. If an AI generates a new video of Stu Macher, there is no real Stu Macher doing that. It's just a ghost in the machine.
The thesis also talks about something called surface reading versus paranoid reading. Can we break that down?
Sure. Paranoid reading is basically what we do as fans. It's what the internet does. We look for hidden subtext, for conspiracies. The whole Stu is alive movement is a paranoid reading of the text. We are looking for clues that might not actually be there.
And surface reading.
Surface reading is just looking at what is explicitly shown on screen, taking the text at face value.
So applying that to Scream 7.
The paranoid reading is us, the audience, and probably the characters within the movie, obsessing over whether the dead have really returned, whether it's AI, whether it's a massive, unbelievable conspiracy. But the surface reading, the emotional core of the film, might just be a mother trying to protect her child.
And the movie plays with that tension. It forces Sidney and us to constantly question if we're being paranoid, or if the surface reality is actually just that dangerous and strange.
It gives the movie a lot more credit than just being another slasher sequel, doesn't it? It sounds like Kevin Williamson is really trying to say something about how we live now in 2026.
He's always been good at that. The original Scream was about media violence and desensitization. Scream 4 was about the dark side of internet fame. It makes perfect sense that Scream 7 would be about misinformation and artificial reality.
And speaking of reality, we need to talk about the other people inhabiting this world, because you cannot have a Scream movie without the ultimate survivor, the reporter.
Courteney Cox is back as Gale Weathers, the only actor to be in all 7 films. A true legend.
She is the tenacious reporter, the legacy survivor, but she's also the one who usually uncovers the truth. If this movie is about deepfakes and digital lies, Gale is going to be the one investigating the tech, trying to trace the signal.
And she's going to be the one debunking it, or maybe falling for it. Imagine Gale being fed false information that leads her down the wrong path.
And then we have David Arquette
As Dewey Riley.
No, wait a minute. We have to address the confusion here. We all saw Dewey die in Scream 2022. It was brutal. It was heartbreaking. It was definitive. It was a gut punch, if you'll forgive the pun.
A very literal gut punch, yes.
Yeah.
Yet, sources list him as part of the cast.
This just has to reinforce the flashback or the AI theory, doesn't it?
It has to. I mean, unless they are going to undo the single most emotional death of the entire reboot era, which would be a massive risk and honestly just bad writing, Dewey, has to appear as a memory, a hallucination, or a digital fabrication.
Arquette himself was apparently surprised the news leaked, which suggests his appearance was meant to be a surprise emotional beat in the film.
Just imagine the killer taunting Gale Weathers with a deep fake video of Dewey, using his voice, his face, maybe even blaming her for his death.
That is unbelievably cruel.
And perfectly on brand for Ghostface. Ghostface has always been about psychological torture.
Yeah.
Using a dead husband to torture the surviving wife. That is exactly the kind of modern digital cruelty this movie seems to be aiming for.
We also have the survivors from the recent movies returning. Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooding are back as the Meeks Martin twins.
The niece and nephew of the original film geek, Randy Meeks. They carry the torch of the movie expert character. Mindy, Jasmine's character, is usually the one explaining the new rules.
Oh, I am very curious to hear her monologue in this movie. If we're dealing with AI and deepfakes, Mindy is going to be the one who explains how it works to the audience. She's going to give us the rules of the post-truth slasher.
She's going to have an absolute field day. Rule #1, don't believe the pixels. Rule #2, always check the metadata.
And let's not forget the music. The atmosphere is everything in these films.
And Marco Beltrami is returning to score the film. He did the score for the first 4 films. He literally defined the sound of Scream.
Our sources mention a specific new track that's been registered, and it's titled Mrs. Evans' Lament.
Which is clearly an evolution of Sidney's Lament, which is that iconic, haunting choral theme from the very first movie. It signals that Sidney has changed identities. She's Mrs. Evans now. But the sadness, that lament, is still core to her DNA.
We also have original songs confirmed. The band Ice Nine Kills is doing a track called Twisting the Knife,
which fits their horror metal aesthetic perfectly. I mean, they are a band that literally writes songs about horror movies, so it's a very meta, very Scream inclusion.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. We have a movie that was born out of intense controversy. It lost its young stars. It brought back the original legends. It is introducing a new generation, Sidney's daughter, and it is potentially using cutting-edge tech concepts to bring back dead villains.
It has a lot of moving parts. But if you step back, you can see the shape of it. It's a clash, isn't it? A clash between the analog past and the digital future.
Break that down for me as our final takeaway. What does that mean?
Well, you have Sidney Prescott. She is the ultimate analog survivor.
Yeah.
She survived physical attacks, knives, landline phone calls. She represents the tangible, physical reality of trauma. She is flesh and blood. She has the scars.
And the villains.
The villains, whether they are deep fakes, AI constructs, or just people using that tech, represent the digital future. Yeah. A world where you can't trust what you see. A world where the dead don't stay dead because they can be regenerated by code at any time.
So Sidney isn't just fighting a killer in a mask anymore. She's fighting the erasure of truth itself. She's fighting a world where her own trauma can be digitally remixed and weaponized against her.
That is the deep dive interpretation. And I think it makes Scream 7 potentially the most intellectually interesting film in the series since the very first one.
It really does. It takes the meta commentary that Scream is famous for and applies it to something so much bigger than just horror movies. It applies it to our everyday reality.
Which is exactly what good horror should do. It holds up a mirror, or in this case a black screen, and shows us what we are genuinely afraid of right now.
Okay, we are coming up on the hour mark here. We've covered the production nightmare, the plot rumors, the wild stew is alive theories, and the academic philosophy behind it all.
We have certainly unpacked a ton of material.
Before we sign off, I want to leave the listener with one final thought. Something to chew on while you're waiting in line for popcorn on February 27th.
Go for it.
We talked about how the original Scream in 1996 changed the way we looked at our phones. It made us afraid to answer the call because a killer might be on the line. It took a device of connection and turned it into a device of pure terror.
Right. It made the mundane terrifying.
If the rumors about Scream 7 are true, if this movie is really about deepfakes and AI, it might do something even scarier. It might make us afraid to believe our own eyes.
That is a chilling thought.
In a world of AI, if Sidney Prescott sees a ghost, if she sees Stu Macher or Roman Bridger standing in her living room, is it trauma? Is it a hallucination? Or is it just really, really good programming?
And if you can't tell the difference, does it even matter? The fear is real either way.
Exactly. The fear is the only thing you can actually trust.
That is a dark note to end on, but a very fitting one for Scream.
Indeed. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into Scream 7. We hope this analysis adds a new layer of terror and, appreciation to your viewing experience.
Enjoy the movie.
Hey,
Yeah, maybe. Turn off your phone.
if you can, catch you next time.